Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to another experience of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy, Ryan Singer. I'm excited today because I have Alex Terrazas on the show and, AKA better known, or I don't know, better known, but also known as, I think one half of Hologram Fatigue, if I'm not mistaken, musician, producer, cinematographer, aficionado of all things weird, experiencer, probably, maybe. I think so. And we're going to get into all that kind of weird stuff. Alex, thanks for joining me here today.
Hey Ryan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. Our mutual friend, Renee connected us, and it's been a journey because of me. I mean, I've been all over the place lately, so we finally are getting on the mics. So I'm excited to chat about this because I have to tell you, listening to the two albums that Hologram Fatigue has put out, and we're talking September 2023, and we're talking last month, October 2023. As the time we're recording this, it's November, but um wow. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know how you describe it, but if people were to ask me, I would describe it as interdimensional instrumental. It's like
Wow.
really, really rad music, and to the point where listening to, I believe it was Mask, that one where I felt like the environment changed. Like when the veil thins and you're like, oh, you're like in a haunted location. You're like, okay, we just got activated. I feel like this is like an activation type. You're tapping into something with the music here that is, I don't know. I don't know if it's changing the environment or it's definitely changing the energy and the vibration and the frequency of the space. And I recommend. I was listening to it out loud without headphones on, which when people go and listen to this because they have to, and it'll be linked in the description notes. I recommend doing that, and then also going back and listening to it with headphones later, if you want to really pick up every single thing that's happening. But I recommend also just blast it out and see what happens to the environment, to the room you're in, whether or the woods that you're in, or wherever you listen to it. Was that an intention in making this music?
And first of all, thanks for that intro. I'm glad you're recording this because there's a lot there that I think we can add to our bio. Um, and I mean, yeah, we don't have a budget for any sort of promo team at the moment, but man, you're definitely top of the list. You and Renee got the jobs.
Okay, well, I mean, sign me up pro bono, my friend. The because I'm going to tell you, I had so many different things passing through my brain device when I was listening, and part of it, and I know you have the music on a licensing site, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh my god, imagine this music. I'm talking to myself here, like, hey Ryan, yeah Ryan, well Ryan, imagine this music on like some of your parent or like some of your documentary type stuff, or just any, like it's, or just movies or short films. It's, I mean, it's there's a versatility to it, and it's just, it's fucking rad. And I'm glad that Renee connected us.
Yeah, I am too. I love Renee. She's the best. And she's she responded to our music the way I would hope that people respond to it. Like she got it immediately, just as you do. You get it. And everything you said about the music is spot on. Like it's brilliant. Like I don't need to say much more about the music because you perfectly described what it is, what it does. So for us, when we create the music, it's imagine creating that. And so it's like, man, it's like sculpting energy and being able to have this like go into this creative trance and just feel that like that flow of energy. Like we don't even speak, we don't really communicate to one another the way humans communicate with each other. I mean, maybe we are psychically, we're linked, um, but it just yeah, it's a powerful experience. And I don't know where else I'm going with that. So
Well, I love this idea of sculpting energy. I mean, damn it. I mean, like for me that's the whole thing. That's this whole like like I often say on this show, like what are we doing here? Meaning like we get one shot at this physical form until we're in the after form, and then maybe, if we're lucky, take on another form or whatever later. But what are we doing here? And what are we doing if we're not sculpting energy? And whether it's meditation, prayer, yoga, any magic, all kinds of things, or trying to communicate with the other side, or whatever else, it's, to me, it's all about sculpting energy, and it's about manipulating the forces, right? and
exactly.
and there's so many different ways to do that. And for me, music is such a key component, uh, you know, a key component to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. And and that's why I like to use the phrase key component. But it's, so there's something happening. My last name is Singer, and I really wish I was more adept in the musical arts. And so I'm always very envious and very admiring, of musicians and people who seem to have the ear, the soul, the touch. And I'm curious if that started very early for you. And if so, how did you know?
I've always, yeah, it did. It started at a very young age. I've always been a creative person, and just, in my everyday life, to the point where it just, I think it really frustrated and confused a lot of my elders, parents and just authority figures in life, because I was always doing things differently. And they would see it as like, why can't you just get the task done, do it this way? And it's like I was seeing it all through a different lens and just applying myself instinctually, however I saw the way of performing or doing a certain thing. And a lot of people didn't understand that. So at a very early age, I knew something about me was different. Didn't know what that was, or as I've said to was talking to Renee about this, like, even with like things like the unexplained, the paranormal, the esoteric, stuff like that, like I've just always been drawn to it. And I've always just kind of, I don't know, that's just always been normal for me. And I think when I really connected with music, I was surrounded by music at a very young age. Our family listened to music. They listened to all the normal stuff that people listen to, pop, rock, R&B, soul. And it wasn't there were no musicians in the family. So I was never around musicians. My only exposure to music came through what my family was exposing us to. But I had an aunt who was, at the time, she was probably in her late teens, and she was a magical woman. And and I don't say that lightly. She truly was. And she really she helped me connect with music in a way that I hadn't prior to that. She just kind of showed me in a way how, like, there's more to it than the music you're hearing. It's kind of like a way of life. And this like magical way of life, she kind of showed that without really having to show me, by just being herself and not really like teaching me any particular practices. She was teaching me a way of being that I connect, like, immediately resonated with me. I was just like, oh yes, this is my language. Finally, somebody who gets me, who understands, where I can just be who I am. Um, so that's where it all began. And then once I got into, um, when I was a tween, by the age of 12, and I really started to come into my own and really start like pursuing or going digging deeper into the things that interested me. Music was one of them, and I was very much, interested, and then became a part of the whole, DIY scene, punk, goth, industrial, all that kind of stuff.
That's rad. And I'm glad that you had that aunt. To me, that is, these beacons of light that we encounter, and they take many different forms and have different relationships as we kind of discover ourselves. And for some of us it takes a little longer, some of it's super early. It's not better or worse necessarily, but so that's really cool. And for me, I'm getting this strong sense as we're talking that it doesn't there's some kind of synthesis happening with you and technology. And I don't know why I'm saying it like this. It's just I'm just speaking whatever's coming out of my mouth right now. But there seems to be some kind of synergy, I think is the better word than synthesis, when it comes to you and technological devices. And almost as if where you end and the device begins can be blurry. And I think it kind of shows by the things that you do, right? I mean, am I totally off base here? I mean, we're talking about you as a cinematographer, operating cameras. These are like high tech equipment, right? And would you say that it's, kind of like they're extensions of you, these instruments?
Yeah, some of the titles that I go by are digital media futurista,
Oh, I
cinemagician,
love that. Oh, I love that.
and esoteric entertainer.
Oh,
And
yes.
and I mean entertainer not in the sense of like let me put on a show and amuse you, more of let's talk about things that are going to make you think. Let's entertain these ideas, these thoughts, these philosophies, these concepts, this psychology, like let's entertain that and just like let's think about it.
Yes. And
And let's talk about it too.
oh, yes. I mean, that is to me, I sit around and I think about this a lot. I think about and part of it is a fantasy that's been built in my head, and I don't know how much reality is actually there, etc. But part of me has always kind of wondered about like the old intellectual communities, and sitting around and talking about philosophical ideas and esoteric tangents. And where does that exist now in today's modern world? And does it exist? And I know that there's these oases, or whatever the plural of that is, where people still enjoy that, and still, I think that's been the saving grace for me, like doing this podcast for 10 years, is I get to talk about this kind of stuff when just typically maybe it's more difficult to find out in the wild, I suppose, especially nowadays. But that is
Yeah,
really fascinating, and an esoteric entertainer, and it's a way of life more than it is a title, right?
yeah, it is. It really is because this has been my life, for as long as I can remember. Um, you know, it's and it's nice when people like yourself can see that in me, or when I can see that in another person like yourself, and you have that connection. So, and that's one of the reasons why, Renee and I connected so well is I think we're just, um, kindred spirits, different skins. And it was, like it is a way of life. And it's always comforting and reassuring and just nice to meet people like that, like yourself, um, who get it, who understand, who are very, maybe similar in their experience or just, their journey. Um, because I feel like we need that, we need that reinforcement. We need to like strengthen our communities to give ourselves the encouragement that we need. Part of being a creative person is not just doing it, but it's also supporting those around you who are doing it. And that itself, is a job in itself, but we all need that. It has to be, that reciprocal energy flow.
For sure. The community is essential, and camaraderie along with that, the support. I mean, especially, and I feel the same way about like parent, especially I don't know, extreme or intense, let's call them SPEs, spontaneous paranormal experiences that people have, it can be really difficult to go solo on that. And the longer you go solo, the more likely you are to start questioning everything about it, and you really, that's when self-doubt comes in. And I think the parallels here with, being an artist, are the same. It probably goes to say for anything, for that matter, just as
Sure.
people. But it is really important to, God, what is that old sociology experiment many years ago? It's a really tragic story. And I don't think it's apocryphal, but it was when they were trying to understand the need for human connection between humans. And what they did is they took newborn babies, and they had it, I think it was at least one baby that they took as soon as it was born, they isolated and had no human contact. And it was, fed, and however it was fed, and that baby died within a couple of weeks, I think, because of the lack of human contact, which like reinforces just how much we need each other, right? I mean, we literally die without each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I feel like, my Aunt Gina was very she was very important to nurturing this creative energy that I had in me, or just this unique way of kind of approaching life. And there have been different markers throughout my life that have kind of given me the reassurance that I needed to take the next steps and do whatever it is. And it's always come in the form of other creative people who've entered my life. And I just felt that spark, that immediate spark with whomever it is. And those are always been like, I feel like the turning points in my life towards the next thing. And the way Hologram Fatigue came together was very much like that. Um, my bandmate Michael Regarello, who I worked with in television, we actually met on a show in Alaska years ago and became good friends. And it was instant connection. We bonded very quickly, became very good friends, but lost contact after working on the show. And then and it wasn't until the pandemic that we reconnected, started to hang out, and one thing led to another, and here we are 3 years later with Hologram Fatigue.
That's awesome. I love the reconnect.
Yeah, yeah, and it came at a really very a much needed time in our lives. Everybody around that time. This was like December 2020, so everybody was feeling the burn of the pandemic at that time and kind of going through their own whatever. Um, Everybody was feeling that, and we certainly were in our own way through our own personal experiences. But seeing each other again, having not seen each other for a couple of years, that felt good. And then once you kind of get in that flow of conversation, things start coming up, and that's when when I asked him, "How have you been?" and he said, in I don't remember the exact quote, but it was to the extent of, "Man, I've just been dealing with hologram fatigue." And that just kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. And yeah, just like that, I started laughing because I knew
Uh,
exactly what he meant, but I had to ask him, like, what I know what you mean, but what do you really mean? And he explained, and I was like, yes, 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 yes. I completely understand. I get it. So we shared a few laughs about that, continued to talk, and then made note of it. And then the next time we hung out, which was like a week or so later, we came back to it and decided, like, this is a nice concept that we both understand, and let's expand on that, but more than just expanding on it theoretically, like, let's put it into action. And we both as musicians, you know we're curious about electronics and synthesizers, so we just kind of dove into it in a time when everybody was like kind of getting into these niche little hobbies, baking bread and doing whatever. We're like, yeah, we're gonna get into synthesizers. So we did. And
Synthesizers were your sourdough.
that basically, that's exactly it. And so there we were. We were the following week we were baking. We it was a very DIY operation, and it has since evolved, but at the time it was just like, it doesn't matter what we have to work with. Let's just do it. Let's just get out there and do it. So we picked a nice outdoor location, which was like at the top of this parking structure, like not really abandoned parking structure, but an unused parking structure that I was familiar with. And I said, let's meet there and we can just crank it up, turn it up really. This is when people were still meeting outdoors. So like, this wasn't, we weren't like indoors. So we're like, okay, we'll take it outdoors, but let's go somewhere isolated and fuck around and see what happens. So we did. And it's funny, this is like the first time as Hologram Fatigue, we were actually performing. And there we were set up in the corner of the top of this like parking structure. And we were no more than 5 minutes into just playing that this cop car rolls up. We see him on the far end of the parking structure, like he drives up and he starts driving towards us. And I said to Mike, I'm like, just keep playing. Just ignore him. Let's just ignore him. Unless he acknowledges us or says something to us, let's just keep playing. So we did. He drives all the way up to the side of the parking structure that we're on. And on the opposite corner of the same side, he parks. He turns around and then parks, backs up his car so he's facing out. And we're basically on opposite corners of the same end of the parking structure. And he's just sitting in his car. We're doing our thing. We're making noise, literally just making noise. Like we're just, we're just kind of we're feeling it out, right? We didn't really go in there with any kind of songs written or anything like that. We're just jamming. And about 2 minutes after sitting there with his car turned off and his windows down, he took off. He wanted nothing to do with it. So what I think what happened was like, I think that was like his quiet space that he would go to, like when he needed a break, he would just go this quiet corner of parking of like unused parking structure and just sit there and do whatever he does. And we just happened to be there that day doing our thing, and he's just like, oh hell no. Hell no.
Little did he realize he was there at the, at the physical birthing of it.
Yeah, but it also reminds me too of like, I love music. I love all types of music, and one of my favorite artists is Fela Kuti. And there's stories of Fela Kuti, who is a Nigerian musician. Um, and there was a lot of social unrest and just like a lot of like literal revolution going on in his village and surrounding areas while he was, growing up and then as an adult and a musician. And so he was very much for the people, and he would stage these protests with music, and they would just play music in the face of these armies that are like these warlords who are like trying to like take over their village or overrun a certain government. And they would just stand them down. Like that was it. Just play, like stand against them, hold the line, playing music, and then like they would just back off. So I like to feel like I kind of like I channeled Fela Kuti in that moment. I was just like, nope, this is our spot. we're we're gonna play. I don't care if you have a uniform. I don't care if you're law enforcement. Like you have an entire city that you can go to. We got here first.
Yeah, and it's like, I love the name Hologram Fatigue. It's like, I'm tired of this illusion of authority that you're supposed to have, and It's just, I mean, and I would like to think that Fela Kuti would be proud of you in that moment. I first discovered Fela Kuti because of there's a mashup musician, Gummy Soul,
Oh yeah.
and did a mashup of Fela Kuti and De La Soul, or Kuti and De La Soul. It was called Fela Soul. And I heard that album and I would listen to it on the mountain when I went hiking constantly. I could not stop listening to this mashup album. And I was just like, I need to know more. And I mean, there's just so much. There's a lot of great, stories being told that people can go find about Fela out, out on the internet as well. If you're
Yeah.
looking for stories about that. And anyway, let's take I'm going to pause here real quick for a commercial break. And just to remind people, they can get all these great chats without commercials over at patreon.com/Ryan Singer for $3 a month. So, I mean, $3 a month, that's like 50% of what I pay for a pumpkin spice latte at like Dunkin' Donuts. Anyway, so patreon.com/Ryan Singer, and we'll be right back. We're talking hologram fatigue. We got a lot more to get into. Holy, holy, holy. And we're back. Okay, Alex. We've got the inception of hologram fatigue, which, by the way, I mean, we could spend a whole nother 5 episodes probably talking about, the simple yet the so damn complex implications and meanings of this phrase and of the name of this, collaboration and this musical manifestation. And for me, it's such a poignant conversation to have that maybe we should just do that. I mean, because we can talk about what was it, Bigfoot Hunter, and Skinwalker Ranch. We can talk about all that stuff maybe another time if we don't get to it. But because I think people listening to this would be like, wait, what? What did you just say? And it's like, okay, hold your horses. Um, but it's like, oh, when I think about, I'm obsessed with the fear of death. And especially within, my comedy is, that's what I'm trying to work on, is just I'm trying to work on in a whole new hour about explaining to people why everything can be, derived from the fear of death. And that's why everybody gets so upset about all these things, that it all can be traced back to that. But for me, that's like I guess my version of what I would consider to be my hologram fatigue. I'm just so tired of I'm tired of myself, and I'm also tired of, I guess, collectively us not understanding the true nature of reality and the driving forces that create scenarios and situations and uh, hardship and trauma, and and everything else that goes with it. Not all just darkness, but when it comes to, I guess, your understanding of, I guess, I don't, encapsulating the mission, or the spirit of this project. Is there a way to explain that in a much less wordy way than I'm asking it?
Ooh, that's a great question. I may have to, I may have to return with Mike for another episode, and then we can both tackle that because, he's got thoughts on it as well.
Oh
And
yeah, that'd be great. That would be great. I'd
but
be interested in that.
to touch on what you were saying, about death, I completely agree with you. I think what we're really talking about here with all of this is death, and that mystery of the unknown. What happens after death? And so I was saying earlier that I've always been fascinated with this stuff. It's just been a part of who I am. It's been a part of my life in so many different areas of my life. So at the age of, I think it was 5, my my mom converted to Christianity. My family was Catholic before that, but like a lot of Catholics, they weren't really practicing Catholics. And so my mom like really dove into Christianity. She hit the ground running, and there was a lot that at the age of 5 that I was then exposed to. And one of the things that really got me thinking was the concept of God and eternity, infinity. What is that? Consciousness, like just like all of that. Like at the age of 5, I would lay in bed at night just thinking about like the concept of God. Like, what is that? What does that mean? And like the one image that I just kept seeing in my head, like my poor little 5-year-old mind, trying to wrap my head around these concepts that have been around for centuries, that everybody you know from intellectuals to just the common person have all tackled and stuff. And I'm just like, what is God? Like God. So like, of course, you see the image of God in, I had these graphic novels at the time. They were like, it was it was the Old and New Testament. They were graphic novels. They were like these Christian graphic novels. The art was pretty decent. It wasn't bad, but I remember like, it had these pictures of God. It almost looked like a Marvel character, the way like the Marvel comic universe would like portray these entities, these celestial entities. And it was just like, it was the guy with the old man with the beard, the white beard and the hair and a robe, and just like, with like the cosmos behind him. So that's how I kind of imagined God, but he's just like cruising. And I'm like, where does he live? Like, does he go to the bathroom? Does he go to the bathroom? Does he have a car? Does he have a garage? Like all these things. I was just like, I don't get it. So yeah, I've been chewing on that now for, my entire life. So I can relate to where you're coming from, because that's been my journey. It's just, trying to wrap my head around it, I think, but just getting more and more confused the deeper I go. So I just have fun with the mystery. I try not to get too bogged down with it anymore, and let it really um ruin my life. I just have fun with it. I understand that it's a mystery that'll probably never be solved. Perhaps not in my lifetime, and I'm okay with that. I just enjoy the mystery, and I'm always curious to hear other people's thoughts and ideas and um, philosophies and stuff. As far as I'm concerned, it's all theory.
Yeah, for sure. I love this idea. I mean, it's really well said. You're not going to let thinking about death ruin your life. And that to me is, it's poignant. And the mystery is where the juice is. And, there wouldn't be one ghost hunter or paranormal investigator in the world if we weren't fascinated with death and what happens after the end of life or physical form or whatever else, right? I mean, that's what all these paranormal investigations are. It's like, hey, maybe we're gonna find out, man. Like maybe there's a chance. And I think all of that stuff is connected, and the mystery expounds into all the areas of the paranormal and the esoteric and the occult as well. And I think even to psychedelics, I would even throw those in there as well. But um and all this ancient knowledge and this questing, I'm obsessed with the quest. And without mystery there can be no quest, and then without the quest there's no juice for me.
Right.
So yeah, so I agree with you. And it would be quite boring, I suppose, if everything was just settled, even though there's a lot of people who kind of think it is. I mean, at least that's the way they operate. But and every once in a while I think they'll get shook, right? And they're reminded, oh yeah, we haven't figured out the whole universe, have we? um
Well, yeah, because everybody has, they have their lives to get back to, or they have like other more immediate pressing matters that they need to tend to. And so, you kind of have to take a break from it. But then it's like, oh, right, we still haven't answered those questions. We still don't know. Like, oh shit, you mean to tell me they still can't agree on what UFOs are? Fuck. All right,
yeah,
we're gonna have that conversation again. Damn it. Like, so um yeah, like I said, it's the okay, you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember Lamb Chop and Sherry?
uh
Or
no.
oh, there was so there I'm forgetting her last name, but there was a an actress, and she was a um she had, hold on, I'm just gonna look it up real quick so I don't bastardize it.
Okay. Well, whenever I hear Sherry, I think Sherry O'Terry, who was like one of my all-time crushes from Saturday Night Live, back in the 2000s. She did the cheerleading sketch with Will Ferrell, but that's the first thing I think of when I hear Sherry. I
Oh
just
yeah,
think of my
no,
love for Sherry O'Terry. But
I know who
uh,
you're referring to. Okay, so Sherry Lewis was a puppeteer and ventriloquist, and she had a puppet by the name of Lamb Chop.
wait, was
And
Lamb Chop like a sheep?
yes, it was a
Oh
lamb.
yeah,
Lamb Chop was a lamb.
or a lamb? Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, duh.
Yeah,
I'm like,
she had Lamb Chop and Charlie Horse.
oh
And
my
she
god.
created these characters like in the 50s, and they were she made the rounds. Like she was on all the major talk shows, and she had her own children's show at one time, I believe. But there was a song, right? There was a song they used to sing, and it goes like this: this is the song that never ends, and it goes on and on and on. Some people started singing it not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the song that never ends. And it just keeps going on and on. And that's, for me, that's the paranormal.
Oh wow. I thought that it might be the most unique and beautifully ridiculous answer I've ever heard about what is the paranormal. The song that
But
never
but
ends
isn't
by
it
Sherry and the Lamb Chop. Well, that's
but
beautiful
isn't it
though.
but isn't it also, isn't the paranormal also beautifully ridiculous?
100%. And I don't think it would be nearly as enveloping or interesting if it wasn't.
Right. And so like that's kind of my approach to all of it now too, or just has been, is I've always had this very absurd sense of humor. I'm an absurdist, a surrealist. I like all of those, those early weirdos. And I feel like you have to have a sense of humor about it. You have to understand like just how absurd it is sometimes, and just laugh at it, and be able to just kind of have a healthy humorous approach to it. I mean, you can still take it serious. You can still, you know, um, yeah, you could still take it seriously, and do your investigations or research or whatever it is that you do, or just follow up on it. But understanding, like, I feel like the true nature of it is very much like a trickster.
100%. I mean, you're speaking my language. And we're on the I mean, we're on the same word on the same sentence on the same page on this.
I feel there's a reason why Renee connected us.
Oh my god. I mean, Jesus. Like this is I mean, Zeus
it's
Almighty. She nailed it.
it's funny because like you're asking me questions about hologram fatigue, but your explanations of hologram fatigue are better than the answers I can give you. And then now I'm just riffing on the paranormal, and you're like, dude, oh my god, 100%. So it's like we switched roles.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like this is the podcast version of Face Off. You can
So
be
who's who?
Travolta. You be
I could be.
Travolta. I'll be Nick Cage. Uh, the
Perfect.
Okay, so I teased it a little bit, and people listening would probably send me hate mail if I didn't follow up on this. But when I teased, I'm trying to remember what was it, the Bigfoot hunter. Yeah, okay, that was a while ago, or like a little over 10 years ago. And then one of the most recent shows you worked on, the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, the most famous location, I would argue, maybe outside of, well, I don't even know. I don't even know if I'd say that. I was going to say like the Conjuring House, or some other place like that, but or Amityville Horror House, but the Skinwalker Ranch has become synonymous with all things paranormal, not just a ghost or a Bigfoot like Willow Creek or something like that. Um,
I think the one thing that it most gets associated with is UFOs, UFO activity. But yes, it's a hotspot for all sorts of strangeness.
so, what season did you work on of this,
I believe it
or
was
what
season three.
season three? Okay, I've seen. I believe. I think I when I moved out of my apartment, I'm trying to think when that was, like a year and a half ago. When I think I got through the first two seasons, so I haven't seen the season your season yet. But um, so you spent a good amount of time out on the property.
Yes.
What was your overall what was your overall characterization of your time spent there? I'm not necessarily looking for, things that may or may not be able to speak on, but just overall your general sense and how you felt being there.
It was There's definitely something happening there. I can't put my finger on it, because when we're there to perform a job, we're really focused on what it is we have to do, and things do happen while we are in production, and then things sometimes happen when we're not there. But then again, things do happen like on set, and things happen offset, and not necessarily what you might think it is, or just high strangeness all around, and not necessarily cryptid, not necessarily UFO, not necessarily whatever. um it just strange things happen. But then again, my experience too, even outside of like the genre of paranormal, like strange things happen all the time on set. So I don't know. Is that you know one is that a combination of two things happening simultaneously, where you have an active site, an active location, and then you bring a production to it. So it's gonna it's gonna mutate, and there's gonna be all kinds of weirdness outside of the weirdness that normally happens when those two are unto their own.
Yeah, for sure. I Real quick here, I want to pick up on this. Just in case, if we keep going for a few more minutes, I'm going to do a quick pause here, and just in case we have to throw in another commercial or not. Just a reminder: Patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month, no commercials. When we come back, we're going to pick up. We're talking about working out at Skinwalker Ranch. We're talking about the paranormal. We're talking about. I think that's an interesting idea you bring up too, about weird things happening on set, just in general. Doesn't even have to be at Skinwalker Ranch. So we're going to pick up, we're going to pull on those threads a little bit more. We're going to be right back. Okay. So it's interesting because I know, there's a handful of people I know who have spent time out there on the property. And I think the one thing people, I don't know, there's been such a history and a folklore around the location that it's not like you just show up on the property and it's not like I would, compared to like when you go to a haunted house for like Halloween, one that's like, charging tickets, there's people working there as like, the monsters and stuff. It's like, and you immediately run into something. It's like as soon as you walk in the door, it's nonstop, constant boom, 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 boom. It's not a haunted house. Like it's not a, it's not a carnival attraction, right? It's a location.
No,
And
yeah, you're right. It's not like that. It's not like, oh shit, stuff's happening like all the time. No, it's not like that. Like it's very subtle. Like, and that's the other thing too with having worked on paranormal shows, is like, and you know this as an investigator and an experiencer, you know that like the one thing paranormal loves to do is avoid any sort of cameras.
yeah, 100%. And
so so yeah, it's like, okay, like you can expect not you can kind of expect not to get results, but then when you don't expect it, sometimes that's when it happens.
oh my God. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, it's like, I mean,
Once again, we go back to the trickster. It's Bugs Bunny. It is Bugs Bunny, and he's just chewing on his he's chewing on his carrot, watching us from a hole like behind us, and you're all over there looking for it with the cameras and everything, and he's just like, you're over there like we're like Elmer Fudd with cameras, and it's behind us, just like laughing because it's like, no, I'm not over there. I'm behind you, and I'm not gonna. Really, it's like, what are you doing? That's how I imagine the paranormal too. I imagine the paranormal as Bugs Bunny.
that's really funny because there'll be times where, like, let's say just this past week, I was in a location in Florida, not doing a paranormal investigation, but it was a place where years earlier I had done one, and it had the daylight scared out of me to the point where I still have a little bit of, well, not a little bit, I have a decent amount of, PTSD, I guess would be the best way to explain it. I mean, I had to sleep with my lights on for a year in my bedroom in Los Angeles in my apartment, after the experience I had there. And there would be times where, at the end of the night when I'm tired and maybe I'm just walking to the bathroom or something, and I'm just like, it's been a good night. I mean, I love how, and I start to have this idea that like nothing bad can happen to me now. Then I'm like, don't let your guard down because that's when it'll get you. Like just like you were saying, it's when you don't expect it, and that's the original experience I had was when nobody was. It was me by myself. We weren't filming nothing, right? And it's when you don't expect it, and that it'll catch you in those moments. And it's not necessarily being a malevolent, uh by doing that, I think, as much as like you say, it's got a cheeky nature to it. And it's like, oh, this is when I'll get you. And kind of like, this is what I do. I mean, what do you, you're out here looking for me and I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to do the thing I do when you're out here looking for me. Like,
Exactly.
right. So when we consider that, I think it takes on a whole new, when we shed that light on it, it kind of,
Yeah,
it'll remove some of that fear. But that's not to say that we can't have the absolute shit scared out of us. And I'm curious if, in all of your experience working on programs over the years of paranormal nature, if there's ever been a time, because a friend of mine who helped me film something a couple of years ago told me, he said, it's a little more difficult for me to be scared when I'm looking through the lens, because
exactly.
I'm looking through, it almost like he has a layer of separation from the thing happening itself, right?
Exactly. So that's exactly what I was trying to say earlier when you were asking me about, like, when you get there, like what's happening. And I'm like, man, we're focused on our job. Like it's our job to make a TV show. So I'm more focused on that than like what is the nature of this ranch and what is happening. These things, like, and it's been like that, throughout my entire career. So, like, I've been in some tense situations. I've been in some, like, haunted places. I've been in, like, whatever. I've been in some scary places, no matter what your definition of scary is. And I don't feel that because I'm looking through the viewfinder, or I'm looking through, and it's like there is that separation, that I don't, yeah, that it's fascinating. But no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly kind of how I felt being there. But strange things that did happen weren't necessarily on the ranch, for me at least.
Like back at the hotel.
Um, yeah, not necessarily the hotel, but just in my life, things that happened in my life, and
Oh, okay.
that was more like more synchronistic stuff. But like the timing of all of it, it just timed out with my time there, so it made it seem even more strange.
Well, I mean, can you give us details? I'm interested, if you're able to, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So okay, so one of the things for me, in my experience with all of this, both on jobs or just in my own personal life, professionally or personally, um, it's more for me in the form of dreams, precognition, and synchronicities,
Oh, okay, here
and
we go.
and less about actual beings or creatures or spirits per se, or unidentifiable objects in the sky and things like that. It's like those things. That for me, that's never, my experience has never been with that. It's always with those those first three that I listed: the dreams, precognition, synchronicities. So um, I was working with a I was working with a friend who I hadn't seen in a while, and on our day off, we were catching up, and I was explaining to them some of the things that happened in my life in the time that I had since I had seen them. Well, the person who I specifically was talking about, former partner, um, later that day, that night, actually, like, less than 10 hours later from the time I had that conversation with a colleague, um, texted me like at 3 in the morning.
Hmm.
And it was just three question marks.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard 3 in the morning, you up, or hey, but never just the three question marks.
So three question marks at 3 in the morning.
Wow.
I didn't get it till like 6 in the morning when I woke up, but I looked, the timestamp, 3 in the morning. And keep in mind, I have not had any contact with this person for about 6 months, a little less
Wow.
than that. So it just came out of nowhere, and it was just three question marks. It just felt it was strange, right? It was just strange. Um, and then it was followed like a week later by a really like kind of unhinged text message from the same person for no reason whatsoever. Um, and I don't know if there was anything going on in that person's life that, I was just like an outlet for them to vent, or if I don't know if it had anything to do with the location where I was, um, or if that, like I said, if it was just a coincidence that those things overlap. But the fact that I was talking about that person less than 10 hours before I got that text, and having no contact with them for months before receiving that, it was just so random. Um, and that's really it. There was nothing like, yeah, that's really it. So like, there's so many ways you could look at that. Once again, another mystery that I'll never know. And I never responded. I didn't reply to the text messages. I didn't care to, like, I just didn't want to go down that path. It wasn't necessary. Um I didn't need to engage.
Yeah.
So I just had,
It's interesting. I mean, I feel like it's, maybe like, being at the, I feel like that location could be a signal boost of some kind. And, whether it's just your energy in general, and therefore like the energy that you're, just having conversation about someone. I feel like, speak it into existence, right? Is such an old phrase. And it's one I really believe in. And,
right.
you know,
And like, well, I feel that, like, our brains work as transmitters and receivers. And, like you said, speak it into existence, think it into existence. Like, yeah, it's very possible that, I put it out there, and that person who I was involved with, there could be some sort of quantum entanglement, and we had not yet completely separated. Physically, yes, but psychically, spiritually, we could have still had those some connecting threads. So when I spoke of, it could have just been enough to, I don't know, do something on their end that
yeah,
prompted
ring the bell.
those texts. Right, exactly. So I don't know. And like I said, I'll never know, but truly a mystery. And of course it happened while I was there. So I'm like, oh God, what does this mean? Like, oh, really? Don't need this. Like, like, of course, right? And then, like, it's always gonna be the other thing with paranormal. It's like it's always gonna, or the phenomena, whatever, whatever, however you want to refer to it. Like, it always seems to know, like your Achilles heel, like where to get you, and it'll find it, and it'll just like, hmm. it'll just poke you, you know? It's like a rock in your shoe. You're like, oh God, no. Like, it's there, but I can't, oh, it's somewhere in my shoe. I don't know where, but I keep stepping on it and like it just knows. It totally knows how to get you, how to play you. So part of that trickster nature, you know, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, I mean,
I wasn't gonna take the bait. Like I said, that's why I didn't
yeah.
engage. I'm like, nope, I'm not taking the bait. Like, nope, okay. Noted, but noted, but nope.
Yeah, well, I think, that's a lesson well learned. It's advice well, that we should all take. I mean, because we all, it's so true though that the paranormal knows the spot. It's got the plans to the Death Star, and
It does.
it knows where that one spot. And that's so true though. And it's like, oh, why do you know? Like, like, what no one should know about, like, just how to get me. um but I mean, that's also like, pretty remarkable and magnificent about the phenomena itself. Um, and it speaks to potentially I mean, we could go so many different directions with this, and the idea that poltergeist is psychic manifestations from one's mind, and kind of like uncontrolled electrical surges that someone is psychically manifesting on a subconscious level, creating a poltergeist, or a haunting in their own home, which
Yeah.
many people theorize is happening. But I'm curious. We're going to let's put a bow on this, and there's a lot more to talk about, and we'll have to do that again in the future, hopefully. And uh
You know,
yeah.
it's a real fun one that we didn't get into. We can save it for next time. But are you familiar with the series Hellier?
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Love that
Okay,
series. Yeah.
I was in Hellier.
Oh wait, I'm trying to remember now, because I've interviewed Greg and Dana, and I've talked to wait.
If you look at my image on the Zoom call, it might look familiar.
Oh my god. The happy birthday balloon. You
That's
know,
me, Mr. Balloon Hands.
oh my god. Okay, now it's been a minute since I've watched it. I might have to go back and rewatch it, because that's going to be what, season two.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Oh man, yeah. The I for those who listen to this show, at least a couple of years ago, when it's like I couldn't shut up about that. I mean, I really loved, like, the most honest portrayal of a paranormal investigation that had been, in my opinion, at least, at the very least, independently produced, and like that was really well made. I really, really enjoyed Hellier. And if people listening haven't watched it still, I can't recommend it highly enough to go back and check it out. It's available everywhere, and you gotta dive into it. Oh my god, you're gonna holy shit, that's so funny.
I second that. It is a truly remarkable series and a genuine investigation, which I found myself a part of without even knowing. None of us did. It just, well, I'll save that for next time.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Because as soon as this call started, I'm like, it just struck me. I was like, that's a very interesting photo. And God, it was sitting right in front of me the whole time. It's so
There
funny
it is.
because
Just like the paranormal, it's right under your nose. Sometimes you don't, you're looking so hard, you fail to realize it's right in front of you.
it's right in front of you. And any any woman I've ever dated in my past will tell you, like, well, if it's right in front of Ryan's face, he won't fucking see it. So that is
There's
it's so
there's the
funny.
evidence. Yep.
Yeah, there's the evidence. Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do that. And maybe the next time we chat, are you still based out of the Los Angeles area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't, I've been in the Midwest now for a couple months, but I was in Glendale for a minute, Culver City for a little. I've been out there for about 12 years, so I think it's going to be the new year when I finally get back. But
Okay. Well, hey,
But
if you're ever when you're out here or if I'm out there, I would love to join you on an investigation. That's one thing that I don't get to do enough of, or I don't really do on my own. I've done it personally, I've done it professionally, but I feel like when you live a magical life, sometimes I don't really need to go looking, but if other people invite me, I'm always open to new and exciting experiences.
well, hell yeah. I mean, consider that done and done. If you're going to be in the Midwest at any time before, mid-January of next year, you gotta let me know. Because we can make that happen. There's all kinds of spots around here that I have never gone to yet that I really want to go to. Just 'cause I think it is fun to go to brand new places, um, for
I could,
obvious reasons.
yeah, and when you're out here, I can take you to the spot where, you know, where I found the balloon, or should I say the balloon and I found each other.
Oh, perfect. Oh my God.
That's I've had, you know, so that area, that spot is not just, it's not just what am I trying to say? I know what I'm trying to say. I just can't find the words. So it that spot is not like what you saw in Hellier and my what happened to me there. That's not the only thing that's happened to me there. Other things have happened to me in that area. And
Okay.
both personally, but then also, um, this was the best. I had an experience with a friend who's not into this stuff, is open to talking about it or just like listening to it, but doesn't really pursue it in any way. Um, and they had an experience there with the balloon twice.
Okay. Things are starting to get very, very interesting. Right?
And so, they were, well, this is what I always like about like, that's what I like about the phenomena. It's like, you and I talking to each other, we understand, so we can kind of have this conversation and not really think twice about what the other person's saying or really question it. There's a very like there's a really but with somebody who doesn't, sometimes they're left scratching their head, looking at you like, what the fuck did you just? What are you talking about? Like none of what you said makes any sense. And with this friend, I was avoiding having that conversation and telling them. They just wanted to go on a good hike. And so I took them somewhere. And there was just like, I wanted to tell them about the Hellier experience, but I didn't. And of course, like after we passed the area that happened, this balloon just comes out of nowhere and crosses our path. And then I start chasing this balloon, leaving him in the dust, going like, what the fuck is Alex's problem? Like, why is he I get to where the balloon finally lands in some bushes and I take pictures and shoot some video and then he catches up and he's like, what just happened? Why did you do that? And I was like, okay, let me explain. So then I had to tell him about the whole Hellier experience and then bringing him up to like that moment that we were both living right there and then. And he's like, okay, yeah, I get it. Okay, cool. Interesting. All right, noted. So we continue. And then as we're finishing our hike, right, there's two paths that you can take. So I asked him, I said, do you want to go back the way we came, or do you want to go over this hill and then down through this forested area? And he's like, oh, let's take the hill and go through the forest areas. I'm like, great. So we do that. And then as we're going, he's like, hey, Alex. I'm like, what? He's like, what's that over there? I look, it's another balloon. And that was it. So I was like, okay, cool. Like we're done here. I'm glad this is the end of the hike. You saw that. You saw the first one. You pointed out the second one. I walked right past the second one, didn't even notice it. He noticed it. So
Yeah. I mean,
just saying.
yeah, you can't unring a bell and you can't unfloat a balloon.
Right. So I love it when it happens. Like for me, a lot of the excitement is like when it happens with other people around, especially people who aren't into this, and they see it. I'm like, but you saw that, right? But you realize like this, that, the other, blah blah blah, and now we're here and we're looking at that, or we saw that, and they're just like, yeah, that's crazy. There you go. Cool. That's it. That's all I need. Just your acknowledgement of what happened. I'm not asking for an explanation. Just you you saw it. Great. That's
Yeah, and
it.
it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, and it's, it's the community, and it's the shared experience, and it's, we rely on each other, and it's so much more rewarding when it's a shared experience as well. And
Oh yeah, it gives it validity.
yeah, and I think there's something to that, actually. I mean, yeah, actually, like I'm thinking of this for the first time, which makes me feel incredibly, stupid. But I mean, if nothing else, the paranormal shows us that we need other people, and just for the in the very nature that the paranormal itself becomes more believable when we're not alone, that inherently part of the phenomena is trying to show us, don't be alone out there, right? And also, it, you know via the X-Files, we're not alone out there. Right?
Well said, my friend.
Oh, Alex, this has been a ton of fun. I want to remind people, you got to go to hologramfatigue.bandcamp.com. Both albums, Mask and Maskless, are there. Let's tell fill in everybody where else they can get a hold of you, or what else you want to let them know about, or what else you want to let them know about. What is that sentence? You know
Oh,
what I
I
mean.
understand. I understand.
You get the signal.
I speak your language. I understand. Words, words fail us. So it's, yeah, that's fine. I get it. So you can find us on Instagram at hologram.fatigue, and you can find me at Neil Young, and that's spelled Nihil.Jung.
Which is such a great handle.
And we didn't even
Uh,
get into dreams.
oh my God. Okay. We're going to remember that for the next time.
That's a whole other one, man.
Yeah.
But oh, and also we um we have another album that we will be releasing on Black Friday
Oh,
called
hell yeah.
called
Or-
Xmas, and that is a holiday album, and it might actually be the first Gnostic Christmas album ever released.
oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
If
Okay.
if one could call it a Gnostic Christmas album. We're not necessarily calling it that, but one could.
One could. And well, you've got one right here who's ready to sound the alarm on not the first Gnostic Christmas album ever released. Okay. I can't wait to hear this.
I hologram
So
for
we got about 3 weeks. By the time we record this, I'm going to put this out this week. And then so here in a few days this will go up, so people can get ready for that. Alex, this has been great.
Thank you, Ryan.
Much love to Renee for the connect,
Yes.
the first
Thank
of
you, Renee.
many.
I hope so.
And I hope so as well. And this has been wonderful. And just a reminder to everybody out there, you can go to thegoofballrun.com, or you can go to ryansingercomedy.com. I'll probably link that for my tour dates for December, and all that good stuff. And then, all my other, I'll keep you posted about the Paranormal Carnival, my live stream show that'll be starting soon. It's going to be it's going to be a comedy show. So if you're looking, it's going to be a hardcore comedy show. But anyway, so, all that out of the way, I hope to see you at a live show. Alex, this has been wonderful. And if I don't see everybody listening at a live show, and I think I can speak for Alex on this one, we'll just see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.
See you there.